I believe that at least once in your life you face this situation. It's winter, it's cold outside, and you're relaxing on the sofa while watching the TV. And while scrolling down the TV channel, all of a sudden you see crazy people that with their skis are gliding down to a hill and then jump as far as they can. And I dare you that at least in your mind you start cheering for them, or even shouting, jump longer, jump longer. But why this is happening? Well, this is happening because it's in our human nature to try to overcome our limits. It doesn't matter if this means to throw something farther, or jump longer, or run faster. However, in all this, unluckily, hard work and dedication are not always the key. Science can help too, and in particular biomechanics. But what is biomechanics? Biomechanics is the use of the law of mechanics to analyze the human body movement. Can help the athlete in 3 different ways: helping in the development of new equipment, in preventing injuries, and giving to the athletes new techniques that are more efficient. I am a biomechanics, and together with my team, we are mainly focused on ski jumping. That is considered a Formula One winter sport. Let's see why. Ski jumping is characterized by being just a professional sport. It is characterized also by a fast development of new technology. And different research centers are actually analyzing the ski jumping performance, but only few of them are publishing the data because they don't want to give any advantage to the opponent. Ski jumping is also a very complex sport. It is divided in different phases. We do have the in-run, during which the athlete is gliding down to the hill. The takeoff, that is the proper jump. The flight, during which the athlete is having a fluid dynamic and aerodynamic position. And finally, we do have the landing. The performance itself is calculated not only looking at the jump length, but also the strength of the wind, the starting point of the athlete on the ski jumping hill, and the technical execution of flight and landing. Landing in particular has to be performed in a certain way, using the telemark. That is a pose during which the athlete is having a step position, one foot on the back and one on the front, kneel down and with the arms stretched apart. Different factors are influencing the ski jumping performance: the speed of the in-run, the force of the takeoff, the aerodynamic pose, and the time of the landing. In addition, important are also the equipment as ski binding, skis, and suit. And all this equipment and also the different factors can be actually influenced by biomechanics. And let's see how. You have to know that from the first competition, the ski jumping world record increase of over 230 meters. That is comparable with 2.5 football fields. 2 examples that I want to tell you are regarding the development of new technique and of new equipment. Until 1988, all the athletes were used to jump using a parallel leg pose. This means that during the flight they were having the skis close together in a parallel pose. But then in 1988, one athlete started to jump using a V pose. So the tip of the skis during the flight were far apart while the tails close together. This pose is resembling a kite and therefore is much more aerodynamics. Firstly, actually everyone was making fun of this athlete, but eventually, already in the Olympic Games of 1992, all the Olympic medalists were actually jumping using this pose. Another example is more recent. In 2010, the Swiss athlete Simon Ammann started to jump using new kind of bindings. This binding were helping him to control better the skis in the air. And with this binding, he managed to win 2 gold medals during the Olympic Games in Vancouver. And that's quite an impressive result just for a tiny improvement of the equipment. But all this came to a larger price. In fact, yes, we have ski bindings that are helping the athlete to position the ski better during the flight, but at the same time, we are reducing the mobility of the athlete, especially of the ankle while landing. And this limitation of the movement is having also an impact on the balance and the stability of the athlete while landing. And so we also had an increase of the injuries. Injuries are pretty common in ski jumping. Roughly every 100 jumps we do have 21 injuries. And these injuries can be different. Some scratches on the face or more serious problems, especially in the knees. Why this is happening? Well, it's happening because while impacting, the athlete has to overcome very high forces that are comparable to the one that a person will face while jumping from the 5th floor of a building. These high forces are influencing, as I said, the balance and the stability of the athlete, and therefore we could have problems related to it. And of course, the farther I jump, also the higher are the forces that I have to face while landing. Injuries are having a very important impact on the athlete career. Just imagine that in the 25% of the cases, an injury is bringing the athlete not to compete for over 1 month. And that's a lot if you think about that the ski jumping competition season is just 4 months long. So we do also have an impact more on psychology. So an athlete that had an injury also is more prone to have an injury the year afterwards. As a result, as biomechanics is our role to help the athlete to reduce the injuries, not only during the competition, but also during the trainings. And now I'd like to bring you some examples of how my team is helping the athletes. As I mentioned, we can help developing new equipment or helping the athlete to have a better technique, and also using computer simulation to forecast how much forces an athlete has to face when landing to a certain length. In my team, we are mainly focused on the computer simulations and on the use of our equipment during training camp with the national team. In particular, we are following the German national team, and we are following them during training camp on the ski jumping hills. What we are doing? So we are using different kinds of sensors that are wearable, like for instance inertial sensors and force insoles. These equipment are wearable so they don't have any cables and are not interfering with the movement of the athletes. We do have force insoles that are insoles placed into the ski boots of the athlete and are given as a feedback the force while taking off and landing. And then we do have inertial sensors that are sensors of the size of a stamp that we place on the different segments of the body, so the forearm, the arm, and so on. And we can have as a feedback the position, the acceleration, and the speed of the athlete. Here, for instance, are actually the data taken from a jump that has been performed in Oberstdorf. And you see here an athlete that is gliding down to the hill. This is the outcome from the software. Then is taking off, flying, and finally landing. So you can wonder how we are using this data. What we are doing is then having correlation, studying the correlation between the kinematics and the kinetics. So the kinematics, that is the position, the speed of the athlete, and the kinetics, that is the force. And then we can say which movement is more affecting the force. And then to each athlete, we can give personal, specific tip. Another example on how we work in our team is using computer simulations. So in this graph, you can see simulated jumps. So each cross means a jump. And on the horizontal axis, you do have the jump length. And on the vertical axis, you do have Newton, so the forces. As you can see, until 80 meters, we do have the forces pretty much under control, 2,000 Newton, that is roughly 3 times the body weight of an athlete. After 80 meters, we have a fast increase of the forces. And why this is happening? This is happening because the heel has been designed to be somehow safe to land until roughly 80 meters. And afterwards, everything is going under control. How we can use this data? Referees and judges during competition can look at this data and have an estimation of how far in the current meteorological condition the athlete will jump, and then decide to interrupt the competition, ask the athlete to jump to a lower stage, a lower gate, or even cancel the competition. Of course, we can actually argue how much artificial this kind of decision is, because somehow we are deciding a priori which is the jump length of the athlete. And this is limiting somehow the spectacularity of the sport. It's a sport that is very spectacular, and roughly every weekend, just in Germany, 5 million viewers are watching the competitions. So that's pretty a lot. And of course, what we have to do is always having an improvement of the performance, but also keeping an eye on the safety of the athlete. Therefore, as a biomechanics, is our goal to not only improve the performance, but also helping the athlete to jump more safe, without, of course, reducing the spectacularity of this away zone sport. Thank you.